All right, we are live. This is Wayne and Jerry, and we are going to be doing a master keying class, a master keying basic class. Jerry, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in the locksmith industry and how long you've been a locksmith and how you've put this course together.
Wayne, I've been a locksmith for about 45 years. Retired when I was 63 because, well, life happens. And I had to go ahead and stay at home. And for several years, I just sat back and did nothing. And then finally, it dawned on me that there's more things to do than being out in the field. So I went ahead and went into the education side, and I started doing things like building apps. And this is no longer an app, it's a platform that I have out there. And no, it doesn't repair anything. It's on its own. And honestly, Wayne, this is one of the best things I've ever done. It keeps me occupied, keeps my mind sane. And people say, well, when you retire, you die. Sorry. I got there.
Yeah, no, that happens all too often. And I think it's lack of purpose after that. You know, you work a job and you have a purpose. Every man needs a purpose and a reason to live. And then when you retire, you don't have that. You lose that. So you just got to stay busy. That's the only thing you can really do.
Amen.
And this is the best way to do it, is to just keep contributing and keep adding value. And that's what I really like. And that's why I invited you here today, is because your values align a lot with mine, to where we can give something back to the industry, right?
Absolutely.
Do we do paid for classes? We do paid for classes, but I try and sprinkle in some free stuff in there too, so that we can help those people who are just getting started. Because I remember the pain when I first got started, right? There wasn't a lot of options. The YouTube wasn't anything near it was. Obviously we didn't have the COVID stuff happen with all this remote learning. You pretty much had to wait for a class. You had to wait for the ALOA convention to roll around, or you had to wait for a convention, and then you could go and spend thousands and thousands of dollars, if you did well that year, to get a little bit of education once a year to bring home and then apply that education and then wash, rinse, and repeat. Now we have technology where we can stream high quality 4K video, and we can get up close and personal. We can get ultra HD shots, we can get ultra HD pictures and video, and now we can raise that level and raise that bar. And that's what I want to do, is raise that bar of expectations for education and the quality of education. And I want people to see what we're doing, and I want them to match or beat me. And I want it to be a race for people to keep generating that content and improving the locksmith industry. So that's why we're all here today.
We have to improve it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. How long have you been a locksmith?
Wayne, I've been a locksmith for 45 years. 45. I still consider myself a locksmith.
Right. That's good. That's good. So we're going to jump into this master key class right here. And this is basically the basic master keying class by myself, Wayne Winton, certified ALOA instructor, and Jerry, and we're going to be teaching you all kinds of cool stuff today about the basics. I wanted to start with the basics and then also let people know that this is going to be a 3-part series. Okay. I didn't want to have everybody here for 8 hours or so and bore everybody to death, to tears, by the time we get done with all the information. So I like to kind of break it. I think that 3 to 4 hour chunks is usually a really sweet spot to have. And then people can really absorb it more. I think people absorb more of the content. So we'll start with the basics. Anybody who has a shop, if you need to train your technicians or train your new hires or new employees, have them sit down and watch this video. This is what the content is for. It's to get them started, so you can be out making that money, and they can be learning at home or they can be learning in the shop. And you don't have to sit down and shut down and stop providing income for your business. You can let somebody watch this, and they can learn the information that they need to know, so they can apply this out in the field. That's why we're here today.
Excellent idea.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here. I'll let you explain what's going on this slide.
Basically, it's just the anatomy of a lock cylinder. You have your cylinder cap, which keeps everything together. your tailpiece for your kick cylinder. Kick stands for key and knob. You have your cylinder cap pin, which holds your cylinder cap stationary so it doesn't spin out on you. And of course, you need the spring in there for the tension. Next to it, and of course, you'll see the cylinder itself, the plug, and the Bible housing, and the Bible covered underneath the what I'm trying to say, covered underneath the my printout on the screen.
Yeah,
but everything is there, and it just helps us get across and understand that this is a whole cylinder. This is what we're working with. This is our bread and butter.
Yeah.
For the, that's how we change cylinder or change the combinations in the lock and everything. This is the anatomy of a lock.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we've got going on here. And this would also be a great opportunity to make this an interactive course. So if you have a cylinder, go ahead and grab it and bring it right to the computer, and you can kind of follow along with us. If you have availability, you can take your phone or your tablet or whatever you're viewing on, and you can take it to your pinning station. You can work right along with us. We also have a downloadable sheet that comes with this that we'll use during the course. You'll see the sheet. It should have gone out in the email. If it hasn't gone out in the email, if you signed up for the course, we'll make sure that it goes out in the follow-up email with the recording of this class, so you can come back and you can visit it. If you missed something during the class, or you just want to take a refresher on it, you can go ahead and do that, or you can walk through and download that and print it off, and then you can follow right along with the pinning that we're going to be doing through the cylinder today. Some cylinders might be different. This is a pretty typical kick or key and knob cylinder. You might have a clip on yours. It might have a clip holding the tailpiece onto the back of it. It might have a different apparatus on the back here, but the idea is that they're all pretty much going to work the same once you get them apart. We're going to use the existing key to go ahead and rotate the cylinder, pull it apart, and then we can go ahead and, just as you would normally rekey a lock and change the pinning combination, we're just going to complicate things more by adding master pins to it. And I also want to take 1 second and just explain that master keying, you have to understand what you're actually doing here. And you have to have your customer understand what you're doing here too. You are absolutely starting to deteriorate the security of the lock. As soon as you start adding multiple shear lines, it makes that lock much easier to pick. And it also allows for other keys to go in there and possibly work. In very poorly designed master key systems, there's a pretty decent chance that a random house key could actually open up one of those locks. And trust me, it has happened in the past. So you really need to understand what you're doing here and why you're doing it. This would also be a great time to talk about high security cylinders. So if you want to maintain the security of the lock and your customer's security integrity, switching that over to a restricted keyway automatically means that they're not going to be able to stick their house keys in there. Okay. They're not going to be able to even get a key blank that fits in that lock because they're patent protected. And then adding the high security factor, a high security lock by definition to me has 2 different shear lines. Like multi-lock has pin-in-pin technology. Schlage Primus has the sidebar on the side, ASA on the side. Twin 6000 is pretty much the mirror opposite of Schlage Primus. Medico has a sidebar as well. So when we add those multiple shear lines to it, we're really not destroying the security of that lock nearly as much as we are when we master key a typical Schlage or a quickset system. When you go into a complex that has a typical Schlage or quickset system, then you really open things up to a lot of different security flaws that can happen. The lock is super easy to pick, and it's also there's multiple shear lines, so we can get random keys that might work in there. So really understand what you're doing before you set it up, and explain that to your customer as well. I think it's really important to be upfront and honest with them and letting them know exactly what designing a master key system entails. All right, so let's jump on to the next one here. Key terms for the overview are going to be your master key, change key. So the master key is going to be the one that opens every single lock on the system. Your change key is going to be the individual keys. So if you have a building complex or a strip mall, the master key is going to open every key on the property, and the change key is going to be the individual tenant's key. Then we've got the bidding. The bidding is going to tell you the numbers related to the pins that are going to be going inside the lock in order to meet the different combinations to meet both the change and the master key. Your pin stack is going to be the number of pins in each individual chamber. So when we pull the lock apart, most common, you're going to have a 5 or a 6 pin Schlage keyway. Each one of those chambers is going to be considered its own pin stack. So some of those pin stacks may have just one bottom pin and one top or driver pin, and then some of them are going to have master pins in them as well to allow for multiple shear lines. Then we're going to talk about the shear lines. Multiple master pins are going to provide multiple shear lines. Therefore, it will be easier to pick. It will have different options. It'll have more combinations. And the more master pins you add, the more shear lines you add. So when you're designing your system, it's a good idea to try and keep in mind how many shear lines you're actually adding to that system. I know if I do like a little mini master key system, I want to just try and have only one master pin in there, or one per chamber, right? If I'm doing a really small system and I don't have to allow for a lot of change keys, the fewer master pins you put in the system, the better and more secure it is, and the less shear lines there are, and the less likely that multiple keys are going to work, and the less likely that it'll be able to be picked as easily as well. So just all good information to have as we go along. And then M.A.C.S, maximum adjacent cut. Okay, so that we've got some really cool videos in there as well. But your maximum adjacent cut, when you have a cut on a key, you've got this big cut that comes down like this, and it has angles. If it was straight up and down and vertical, you'd have like a lever lock key, like a safe deposit key. Only that doesn't go in. If you've ever had something like hooks or too steep of an angle on your cutter, you notice that the key doesn't go in. It requires that angle. That angle is required on the key to interact and engage with the angle and the tip on the pin so that it allows the key to come in and come out. Now, because of that V'd angle, the deeper you go, the more you're going to widen it out, and the deeper it's going to start cutting into that next cut. Okay, so that's why we have the M.A.C.S violations, and that's why we don't want to make those violations. And again, we've got a video and we've got some pretty cool pictures that I took that are all HD, so you can really see where the pin is supposed to sit, what a pin is supposed to look like sitting in its natural cut, in a healthy cut, and then we can see what it looks like just sitting on the very, very tippy top of a violated, a M.A.C.S violation cut. So we'll be able to get a look at all of that today. And go ahead and explain this one, Jerry.
Okay, Wayne, Parity. Wayne, we all went to school, and we learned in math that if you add an even number to an odd number, you'll always end up with a odd number. If you add an even number to an even number, you'll always end up with an even number. So parity goes ahead in locksmithing. You don't want to go ahead and, I do not ever use a one cut in my systems, because that'll just go ahead and there's too many ghost keys. If you do just using master pins of 2, 4, 6, and 8, rather than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, you can go ahead and get better control, and you don't have to worry about, well, is this key here that isn't even and even through all the way, or the key that isn't cut with M.A.C.S in mind and with parity in mind. If it isn't going to work that way, chances are it's going to go ahead and ghost into others. I only use in the systems I've built and everything, I only use even pins. I only use even master pins 2, 4, 6, and 8, and never run into the ghost key problems because everything is separated by 60 thousandths, and on a Schlage type platform, others are even deeper, which is fantastic. but you never want to go ahead and just have a 15 thousandths difference in a pin.
Yeah, yeah. And other reason for that is too, again, we've got some videos that's going to show what one cut looks like as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a de-escalating key, and then what that looks like in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can see how those 15 thousandths pins, sometimes they engage with the other key, sometimes they don't. And you can also see how over time they would wear. And in a cheaper cylinder, like if you're rekeying some residential grade locks, or even those like the stock little Zymac locks that come in aluminum storefront doors, they're so sloppy, the tolerances are so sloppy that the 15 thousandths pin will actually drop in between the plug and the housing, and that will start to cause a problem. Then none of your keys are going to work, and you're going to have that grinding effect in there. I can't tell you how many times we've gone out to do a lock repair for a cylinder that's jammed up, or the keys just randomly stopped working, and lo and behold, there's 15 thousandths master pins in there, and it's just not designed to be that tolerant. Every time you turn that key over, you're wearing the edges of each one of those little pins, and over time it'll wear it down to the point where it can get trapped in between the cylinder and the housing, and that just totally and completely destroys the master key system. So not good things to do. All right. We're also going to make this a work along, so you can work along right with the video. You can write down what change keys go to what cylinder. You can copy the master key chart that we have here. You could just draw your own boxes or get some graph paper, or there's also a link to download the ones that we have here, and you could probably do a quick internet search and find master key graph paper just about anywhere and pull it up on your iPad or a tablet, and you could probably fill it out as we go along here. So let's see, the hierarchy of master keying, how different keys work in the master key system. You've got your master key and change key. This is just the basic system. So we will talk about larger systems, grandmasters, great grandmasters. You can even do master keying through keyways, right? You like the Sargent stuff, the old Sargent stuff, and the Yale stuff. But that is going to be saved for the advanced class. Okay, so that's going to be getting pretty advanced. Looks like we put the worksheet over there in the chat section. So there's a Google Drive. Go ahead and click on that, and you can download the charts, and you can work right along with us. I'm sure you can get a program on your iPad or your tablet to follow along with us, or you could print it off really quick. So we're just really going to be focused on the very basics today, which is the change key and the master key. How do we get two different keys to work in one lock? That's really going to be the basic focus of today. And then we'll talk about getting more advanced in the advanced portion. And then on top of that, I thought it would be good to talk about A2 pinning, because that is pretty much all math and master keying anyways, even to just get the interchangeable core format to work. To retract a control lug, you have to meet a mathematical formula. And then usually those keys will have multiple keys on them as well. That's what's going to be in your big box stores. You know, they send out a whole bunch of cores and a whole bunch of keys. Here's the manager's key. Here's the janitor's key. Here's the cashier's key. Here's the, cleaning people's key. Here's all these different keys. When they send that out, all of that is all built into the system. And then on top of that, it also has to meet the correct math for the control key to actually retract the control lug. So a lot of math involved with that. So once again, we've got to break it up into 3 chunks. And today is going to be the beginner's portion of those 3 chunks. All right, so I'm going to do some basic master keying right here and just kind of show you. This is what we're going to be doing and following along with today.
Okay, we're going to do some master keying here, and the only cutaway cylinder I have is this LFIC, so we'll just not pay attention to that last pin that's a check pin specifically incorporated with these stylus cylinders here, but we're going to be able to see the pins, and we'll be able to see the pin stack and how it actually separates. So this would be a normal lock cylinder out in the field. If we wanted to master key this, we would start off with the same process as rekeying any other lock, where we pull off the cap screw or the tailpiece, depending on what you have. I'm going to dump all those parts over there. Then if you have a working key, insert the key. You can see that we are now meeting the shear line, and that's what our pins look like. Okay, this does not, it only has 5 windows, not 6, because they couldn't notch that one out. So this is just to give you a visual aid, to give you a nice visual aid so you can see the differences in the shear lines. And then we're going to go over M.A.C.S violations, as you can see here, and just some other bad habits that people tend to have. Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and follow this out just like any other lock cylinder here. So we have a 6-pin lock, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this pin is not relevant in most keying applications. It is only specific to the Schlage large format interchangeable core system, but we're using this just so we can use the cutaway windows here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out, and then those pins are going to come out. So I'm going to work with an empty lock cylinder. The top key, forgive my crude handwriting here, but the top key that we want is we're going to be making this key, which is bitted 7, 2. Let's see if we can blow this up a little bit. Which is bitted 7, 2, 5, 4, 1, 3. We're going to make that key, and 1, 4, 7, 2, 3, 1. We're going to make both of those keys work in this lock, and we're going to do so by following this bitting here. Now, I like to put B for bottom pins and T for top pins or master pins here, and this is going to be how they're actually going to sit in that chamber. Okay.
Just to take 1 second here and kind of fill in, when we're looking at this, when we're deciding which one's going to be the top and which one's going to be the bottom, I write both numbers out in those boxes, and then you pull the lowest number out first, and that has to be your bottom pin. Because if you have a 6 and a 4 in that pin stack, if you put the 6 on, the 4 can't turn, right? There's no shear line at the 4. So you always have to put the lower number down first. So B for bottom, write all the lowest numbers in both key cut combinations. So you'll see that's written down there. The lowest numbers go on the bottom, and then the higher numbers go on the top. And then it's just a simple math in between the difference of the two as to what that master pin is going to be. And then I'll show you how we actually check. You can check it so you can actually see, is that bottom pin meeting that shear line? And we'll try both keys out as we progress through the cylinder so that you can see and watch how exactly that works.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a look and see what we've got here. So I'm going to start off with my see if we can blow that up real nice and big. So for the first one, we're going to have 1 and then 6. So I'm going to get a 180. So I've got a 180. There's your 180. And that's going to go in there. And I can verify. There's my key. I can verify that that is going to work by putting that in.
This can save you some trouble when you're first learning. One of the things that can happen is we all have had that issue where a pin has jumped from one pin to the next little container in your pin kit. You're reaching to grab something, or you hit a bump, or the pins get intermingled and intermixed. Okay, if that happens, then you don't get a chance to put the key in and see that it's all flush and flat, and then shove it back into the cylinder. In most cases, you're going to have not one of the keys is going to have some kind of master pin sitting above it, and it's not going to allow you to do that. So this is a way that you can double check and verify, does that pin, when you're learning, this is absolutely important. Once you've been doing it for a while and you put it back together and it doesn't work, you're going to know exactly what happened. Oh crap, I put, one of the pins jumped and we put the wrong one in, and you'll know how to solve that problem. But to make it less frustrating for you, it's a good idea to go ahead and check as you build it along, check it with that cut and make sure that it's flat and flush as it should be before you put it back together, because you can't use the key to put it in there. And if you do that on a real tight cylinder like this one, trust me, I tried to shim that cylinder to get it apart to begin with, and I wrinkled up about 3 shims trying to get it done, because Schlage actually has fairly decent tight tolerances on that, which is a good thing. We want tight tolerances, but it doesn't make it a good thing if you're trying to learn and you make a mistake.
And see how it's flush? So that is our one cut, okay? That was our one cut in our key bitting right there. Now, next, we're going to do a 2. So for Schlage, that's going to be a 195. Where's my 195? Okay. 195. Go right there. And then we'll check that one with the other key and see that we have verified that that is the correct pin and that is the correct depth that it needs to be. Next, we're going to go with a 5. Schlage 5 is going to be a 240. Can verify that that is also the correct one. Yep, nice and smooth. And then we're going to do a 2. Go back to our good old number 2 on our 195. Like so. That would be this one. Okay, we're just looking at that one. Good. And then 1, 1. So we need a 180 and a 180. And we'll verify that that is indeed the one we want there. Looks flush. And another 180. Right there. Okay. Beautiful. Cool. Now we're going to add the top pin. So I need a number 6, which is going to be a 090. So an 090. And that is what it's going to look like. Okay. Right there. Now, watch what happens. Okay. This is what we're looking for. Okay. So you can see that. Now you can see that it's going to hold that pin up. Okay. And it can move independently. So there's the shear line for the smaller cut or the shallower cut. And then I'm going to take that out and I'm going to put in the deeper cut. And when both pins are stacked together, we are meeting the shear line. So there's 2 different shear lines in that first chamber. I'm not going to do this for every single one of them, just for time's sake, so that we can get moving here. But it's going to be 2s all the way around. And then this is going to be your number 2 pin. You can see how small that is. And yes, I cut my finger, so I got a little super glue on there. And that's what that is. So I'm going to put those guys right there. These are all 30T. Okay, little 30Ts right here. So I'm just going to plop.
Number 2 is going to be your most common pin that you'll probably be using in your master key system. So if you're going to be master keying a big job, have plenty of number.
Now, run both of these keys in there. We should be able to meet. Oop, we got an extra one somewhere. Mm-hmm.
I hate it when that happens.
This way.
I know.
Okay. So then we're going to meet all of those different shear lines, and it's hard for me to turn it so that you can see that. But that's what it's going to look like. All right, so now I'm going to put this back up in here. Notice you're not going to be able to have a key blank inserted when you master key. You're just going to have to trust your math.
That's where taking that extra second and shoving both of those keys in there and looking at it sideways and seeing that you can see that shear line across all of them. It's going to let you know if you added too many, like the one in there. I dropped 2 master pins in that top one. I wouldn't have caught that unless I shoved that key in there. And I usually do that. If it's a mini master system, I'll do it for each one. But if I'm doing a larger master key system, by the time I get the first couple out of the way, I know that I'm trusting my math. I know I've put fresh pins into little cups. You know, that's a great way to do master keying too. If you have a big job, you pull the pins right out of the package and you dump them into little cups, like little dressing cups or takeout cups that have the little sides in them. That's perfect for master keying. And then that way, you know, no pins are getting mixed. Nothing. It has to be what was in the package. So unless they packaged it wrong, you should be guaranteed to have exactly what you're putting in there. And then there's also software programs that we'll talk about at the end of it that'll actually tell you the exact list of what you need. Right? You design your master key system. I've got 60 keys, 60 locks to key. Here's the master. Here's how many change keys. Here's the grandmaster. Here's how many different levels and tiers it needs to be. It designs the system for you. It gives you all the cuts. It gives you the master key. It knocks out all the max violations. And then it will give you an order as to how many pins you're going to need in what size and what quantity. And always order extra, right? You always want to order a little bit extra, just a little bit extra, because why not? The worst thing that you're going to do is fill up your pin kit when you're done, right? And then that way it's all set out. You have everything you need specifically for that job. And I do it right there. I'll usually go to the location and I'll ask for a room and I'll just set up on a table and blow everything out, put my key punch right there. I like to use punch machines when we're doing master key systems, because I tell you what, that blue punch, it's not gonna miscut, right? If you cut it on there, it's gonna be dead smack on. And that's usually part of the setup process, is having all the pins in the correct order, the correct amount of pins, having them in those little dishes so they're heavy enough that they sit, but not so that they tip over. And then having your keys and having everything cut right there, and labels. Cut, label, and then label your keys too. Because if you have all these keys marked everywhere and you don't have them labeled, you're going to be sitting there key gauging everything, adding more time to your job, costing you time and money, So you don't want to do that. You want to have everything as prepared as possible to get that job done as effective and efficiently as possible.
Okay. And so then we'll click. Great. And if we did everything correctly, imagine that. Look at that. And then we can see those other master pins trapped up in there. Okay. So that's what I really wanted to get here was let's really kind of see if we can zoom in on this here. So you can see all those different shear lines moving in there. Okay. When we insert that key, you can see master pin, and in the first chamber, that would be that larger master pin as well. Okay. And that allows us to turn that over, and then you can see the other master pins down in here. Okay. So that is exactly how you have a really, really good visual aid as to exactly how master keying works. Now I'm going to pull that key out, and I'm going to put this key in. Okay. Now we have a different set of shear line here. Okay. So you can see that it's trapping those master pins in here, here, and here this time. Okay. And then voila, you can see it as it comes in here. And then we can watch that key pull out, and you can watch everything move up and down. Beautiful. So that is your master keying. Then we would go ahead and just put all the pieces back to this cylinder, put it back together, and we would be done. You're now working and you're done. Okay. So I'm going to pull this out, and then we're going to show you what some M.A.C.S violations look like and show you what some other no-no habits are.
All right. So that's basic master keying. We'll go through and go through master pin follower and why that's important. So we got some questions over here. Will this be available to review later? Yes, this will be able to review later. This is going live now. So anybody who's live here can ask questions in the comment section. We do see those, and we will take time to answer those questions. And then this will be available live long-term, or not live, but it'll be pre-recorded. So people can watch it in the future as well. So you can come back if you missed something or you want to go back over something, you can certainly do so. Go ahead.
I like to go ahead and tell anybody that the only dumb question is the unasked question.
Yeah.
If you have a question, just put it in the chat.
Yeah.
No one's going to know who said it. We'll be happy to answer anything.
Yep. And then if this is later, if this is after the fact, the nice thing about this too is we will have a comment section in the video. So on the recording that gets posted, we'll be able to go, and you could actually go. So if you're not live, you can still ask questions in the comment section, or you can DM me and we can answer any of those questions for you at that time as well. So good stuff. This is one of those things that I feel all too often doesn't get taught enough. It doesn't get taught enough by the education platforms when you're learning locksmithing. It's more about how to rekey and how the lock works. And I think this gets forgotten about way too often. And I think even locksmiths, as you're training technicians, tend to forget about this step. So I thought it was very, very important to bring it up, because if you recombinate somebody's lock and change the combination in the pin bitting on there, they're expecting that the only key that works is the one you hand them. And unless you do this step, you can't guarantee that. That means if you go to, let's say, worst case scenario, you go to something like a domestic violence situation and you rekey that lock and you don't know if there's master pins in there, there is a small chance and small possibility, but it is still there, that that may not be the only key that still works that lock. And you may have multiple shear lines and allow multiple keys to work when your customer doesn't even know that. You don't even know that. So making sure that you take a master pin follower and run it through every single lock that you rekey is really about the only way you can ensure that you're not leaving multiple shear lines behind you. And in most residential applications, you're not going to run into that. However, in most commercial applications, any kind of strip mall, any kind of apartment complex, anywhere where there's multiple areas that are being controlled by one property management company, it's a mandatory thing to run the master pin follower through there. So just kind of keep that in mind. Follower with master pin trap is good. Yeah, master pin follower. Yep, that's what we're talking about right now. And we'll show you exactly how that works, why it works, and what it's doing to remove those pins.
Okay, so now that we've got an idea of how the master keying works, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little trick for pulling the master pins out, because you saw that we couldn't put both keys in and we couldn't put the keys in with the cylinder. So that means when we insert a key and we rotate it, then you're still going to have master pins trapped in the top chamber. Okay. And this is something that I highly recommend you should be doing with every lock that you rekey, and that is running a master pin follower in here. And it has this cutout area right here. You can see this little cutout area, and that is specifically designed to help you extract the pins, because we're not normally going to have these windows to be able to see, so we wouldn't know that those master pins are still trapped up in there. So what we're going to do is follow that out, okay, like so. And then what's going to happen, the magic of this is, here's where that little flat spot helps. A normal follower would just be round like it is down here, or round like that. But the magic of this is, watch this, okay? As it comes around, check this out. Pink. Okay, so now it allows those pins that were trapped in there to come out. Let's see if we can see what that looks like here. And then when you shake it back and forth, see how they're all coming out? See how they're all feeding out and coming out the bottom end here? Okay, that's what you want. Okay, so you take it, and I just like to wiggle it back and forth like this at an angle, hold it like this, and all of the master pins will then come falling out into your hand. Okay. Now with this one, the beauty of it is that it will roll those pins right back up into place. You can see how it drops them, allows any master pins to come out. You can kind of see how they kind of dance around in there. Let's see if I can get a good shot of that. Okay. See how it allows them to move like that. Okay. And that's what allows those master pins to drop out of there like so. And then it flicks them back up. Now, one thing I will caution you on is if you have a residential cylinder, it is likely to have spool pins in it. And when you turn it over, those spool pins, when you go to rotate it back, are going to get caught right up in here. So if you have a home or residential grade cylinder, the next trick I'm going to show you is really going to help you out. So what I like to do is rotate it in the direction that you need it to go. So you're trying to rotate it so that they'll pop back up. But if you find that they're getting stuck, you want to just take a pick, just like a regular pick, okay, and use the back flat end. And we're going to tuck up under all of these and shove them past the serrations that would be in some locks. Okay, this is just for those who run into this problem. So I'm just going to tuck it in, and then I'm going to tuck it up in, and I'm going to use my thumb and the pick to help push everything back together. And now we're all back to where we need to be. So you can see exactly where we're at. Okay, so that is how you drop the master pins out of a cylinder, and I would highly recommend doing this more often because you don't know what could be in there from the previous person. There might already be, you might have rekeyed several locks, and if you didn't check for master pins, they could still be in there, and that can cause some problems down the road, because what also can happen, and I can show that too, is eventually master pins build up to the point where they'll jam the cylinder and the cylinder won't work anymore. And we can show an example of that as well. All right, so I've got what I'll refer to as an overcrowded cylinder here. And let's say we have somebody who didn't check, okay, and make sure that they had some master pins in there. So I just keyed this, and I just added my master pins. And then I go to insert my key. And what do you know? What would be?
Couple things can happen. One, if you overstack it, a lot of times your key won't even go in to begin with. So
Correct.
If you do find yourself in a position where you go to put the key in and it won't go in, and you see that there's a high cut there, almost guaranteed there's an extra pin in there. You've overstacked it, and what's happening is it's crushing it up against the top and the spring. That'll be a dead giveaway that you won't be able to get your key into it. And then sometimes it can happen more on the way out where you can't get your key back out hardly.
Hold, sure, that key works. Okay, but let's say we rekey this to something more dramatic. Okay, something with like a 9 cut or something in here, or something more deep in there. Do you see how these pins can stack up, and then you'll over compress that top cylinder there? So if you just master keyed something and you put it back in, and then you find that your key is stuck, see how the key is getting stuck? See how there's too many right there? That's a really good picture of that. See how there's too many right here? And the key's getting stuck? You have an over stacked cylinder, and it's over compressing, and if it happens enough, you won't even be able to get the key out. Okay, so that could be something that's happening in there. So if you got something wrong, or you master keyed something, and even if you rekeyed something and then all of a sudden you have a deep cut and you can't pull your key back out, there's a really good chance that you probably encountered, you didn't drop the top pins, or you made an error in calculations as to where those need to be. Okay, so again, the solution to that would be simply putting in our master pin follower, clicking it.
Super slow motion, just to show you what those master pins look like dropping out of there. Very dramatic.
And then dropping all of those right out. Okay, right out the side here. I like to get a little forceful with it and make sure they all drop out. Okay, there they are. They'll drop out, and then now they're all back up in there. Okay, so that's something that can happen, is overstacking your pins.
Okay, so hopefully everybody understands the ideas and concepts that we went over there. Even if you have that master pin follower, if you have pins that are like really thick or really deep top pins or master pins, like 6s, 7s, and 8s, sometimes those even have trouble dropping out. So just because you ran your master pin follower in there, it does not guarantee that you're going to drop a number 8 master pin out of there. Now there's usually not a lot of those in there, but if you've got a system where you've got to use every change combination possible because it's a big campus, then you can bet that there's probably some of those larger top pins in there. But just keep in mind, it's not foolproof, right? That it's really great at drop-ins, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. But as soon as you start jumping up into 6, 7, 8, it can have a little trouble trying to drop those out of there, in which case you would just need to blow the whole cylinder up, pull everything out, and then just go ahead and rebuild the whole thing. That's really the only way you're going to get all of that out of there.
And Wayne, also in the, I know in Sargent, if you go ahead and the factory sends out 1 pins, and they have 3 different top pins they use, a 160, a 180, and a 200. With the 1 pin, the 200 will go ahead and it will, if you put anything bigger than a 2 or a 3 in there, it's going to trap your key.
Yep.
So you got to go ahead, and when you go to do a Sargent or something like that, you're going to have to go ahead and make sure that your driver pins right beneath your springs are correct for that manufacturer.
Yeah, you're going to have to rebuild the whole thing. It's not going to be as simple as just recombinating the bottom. In fact, I think actual Schlage specs in manufacturing actually has 3 different top pins, but nobody really messes with them because, if it doesn't trap the key, you're not really going to know. And it's letting that tolerance come by. And I think most of the residential stuff now, they've actually shrunk the top pin. So it's just the smaller one all the way across. But if you do run into that, that is something that could possibly be happening on some of the commercial grade locks or some of the older locks, is you might have to match the top pin to the pin stack of the bottom pin if you're trying to really maximize the range and every single change key that you can possibly get out of there, not just with other keyways, just any keyway for that matter. So it's good to know specs, manufacturer specs, and every lab pin kit has those specifications in the top of the lid. So if you have a 3000s or a 5000s pin kit, which every locksmith should have, that's like the basic bare bones to doing this, you should have that kit, and it'll give you all those different specifications and factory numbers right in there. So you've got it all the time. What do we got here, Jerry? We got the.
This is basically, Wayne, this is a blank sheet for filling out a master pin system if you want to do it by hand. Basically, I don't have a cursor. I don't know if I can do this. Oh, there I go. I got it.
Okay.
Okay. So right here, you put in your master pins here, and you have to excuse me. I'm not used to drawing on a laptop. But you'll see here, you have a box here, a box here, and a box here. This is all for the hierarchy of master keying. You got a page master. I'm talking about that. 4-page, 16-page master. Those are all covered in the advanced class. We have progression here, and I'll explain that. And then these columns here that are sort of highlighted. And I'll come over here if I can get my screen to cooperate. It's not cooperating. But under the bottom, you'll see there's another separate group. And again, thank you, Wayne. This is in the hierarchy 2 here. And this will all be explained in the advanced class.
Okay. So we're going to jump over to the next page here and explain the progression in a 2-step master key system. Go ahead.
In a master key system with a 2-step progression, we automatically jump. So you put your master key in of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which would be a lousy master key, but you would go ahead and you would jump the 2. We jumped 2 steps to be a 4 in your first change. 3 would be a 5, 4 would be a 6, 7. I can't even do it in my mind, but you can get the general concept of where everything goes. You just automatically go ahead, and the first one, Wayne, could you go to the next slide, please? I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. In the progression, the A stands for where it rotates in every position, and in the workbook. and the workbook it can be as many as 256 pages. In a 6-step or a 6 progression system, it'll be 64 pages or 4,096 possible different changes. In a 5-step, or a 5 position, it will be 1,024 possible changes in there. That is including the M.A.C.S violations. M.A.C.S violations we can't use, but that's how many possibilities there are in a 5-step or a 5 count and a 6 count chamber. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here we have a 0 as a master pin. We're in progression A. So you see it rotates every time. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. It goes all the way through on this one page. That's how your changes are. Any place the A position is, in other words, if the A were over here, then that column would be the A. It would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. This is how you go ahead and how your system will progress and how your changes will progress.
Right.
Have I lost anybody?
No, I think we're all good. Do we have any questions over there? No, we just got Andrew saying hello, so I think we're all good there. We're not going to be able to see your cursor on the slide here, so you'll just have to kind of explain where that box is as we move through the system.
Okay.
But we can keep going through here where the B position rotates every 4 positions.
Correct.
In the master key system in the workbook. Okay. So here's an example of that, and you can explain that.
In the second position where it says where the B is, you can follow that down in each one here. This would be your B column. There, there, and there. Mm-hmm. So they all rotate once every 4 times. So this is 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 4, 4, 4, 4, 6, and 8. That's the way it goes all the way across.
Perfect. So does everybody understand the math and why the numbers are going in the columns that you're seeing here? Yep, you're not going to be able to see the cursor. We understand that, but you're just going to have to look and see what we're talking about on the chart. You can easily see the A column and how that progresses, and then you can see the B column and how that progresses through the system as well. And as we continue, you'll see how everything gets made. All right, then we've got the C position that's going to rotate every 16 positions for the master key workbook. So you can see A, and then B is every 4 positions, and C is every 16 positions. So we can take a look at what that looks like on the workbook here as well. Okay, everybody can see that. So you can see in the C column how it's going to rotate. Do you have any more on that, Jerry?
You have basically no, because it, as you said, Wayne, the C position goes ahead and rotates every 16 changes.
Okay. I'll leave it up here for just a minute. If people want to take a picture, go ahead and do so. Or if you're trying to write that down, I'll leave it up here so people can write that down. If you are working along, I'll go ahead and just blow it up here so people can see and keep pace with what we're doing here. There's a pattern. Okay. That's all this is patterns and pattern recognition and math. If you can do math and you can do that same pattern, it's going to be the same repetitive pattern throughout the entire system. And that's how we come up with the math required to do this. Now, there are programs that'll do this for you. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but really there is something to be said for writing it out and actually putting pen to paper And this goes further than just learning and master keying. There's actually different neural pathways that are created when you visualize something, and when you write it down, it creates more neural pathways from your brain to your hand so that you can actually see it. And then you have that visual that you can see. And now you are grooving that into your brain as much as you possibly can, the more you actually write it out. So I know writing's not fun, but this is definitely the way to really get familiar with it. And once you do a full sheet, once you do a full progression, it'll be seared into your head, and you won't have to really think about it next time. You can come up with a master key system just like that, with or without software. You can do it right in your head. There's a ton of times where we have, big houses even want to have a little mini master key system. And in those cases, I'll just write out, 6 little blocks and just write it by hand and create that little mini master key system, so that the guest house has a guest key, the maid key works on some areas, the wine cellar is only for the owners, and like an owner's closet or an owner's room is only the master key or only the owners. That's going to be some really common stuff. Or even just a little mini, like a little mini strip mall with 5 or 6 different tenants. This is going to be something you can do in your head. You can just write it down on a piece of paper extremely easily. Okay. All right. Then the D position is going to rotate every 64 positions in the master key workbook.
Or basically one page.
Yep. So one full page.
Correct.
Okay? So that's why you're going to see 2s all the way across the board in the D column, because every single number on here, every single cut on the 1, 2, 3, 4th position is going to be a number 2 throughout this entire page. Okay. So hopefully everybody's writing that down, or you can take a picture. I'll leave it up for just another minute here, and then we'll move on to the next page, and you can see how that math is progressing out. Okay. The E column is going to rotate every 256 positions in the master key workbook. So we can see that last number, E, is going to be the same for multiple pages. You're going to see that 2 showing up in multiple pages all the way throughout the workbook. Okay. Give people just a second to either take a picture of that or write it down. But in that E column, it's pretty easy. It's all 2s. Okay. There's nothing super special about that. Then go ahead and tell us about the F position and the
F
last
position
there.
Wayne works on 1024 changes, and it works. It will be all the same throughout the first 16 pages of a 64-page workbook. If we're doing a 5-page system, then the F position would be considered the master key.
Right.
Okay. Or a 5-page.
Yep. I'll leave that up just for one more minute. So if people want to take a picture of it, go ahead and do so. This is what it's for. It's for you to learn, and it's here for you to take advantage of and put to use and learn. So this is the math here. And you can see everything keeps doubling up as we keep moving through the system, right? That's the way that the math progression works. Okay. So here again, you're going to see those 2s in that F column. Okay. Got the Pin It Right practice sheet. Let people write that down for a minute. We'll leave it up here for just another minute. Are there any other questions? If you have questions, this would be a good time for questions in the question box. And then is there anything else, any rules or any just 40 years of experience that you have to offer for people who are writing this down and who are learning this and trying this out?
The only thing is to be aware of M.A.C.S. Not everybody has a 7 M.A.C.S like Schlage does. Arrow is 7. Corbin Russwin System 70 is 5. Quickset, believe it or not, is 4. So you can see right there, this whole column here, if it was Quickset, the last column would be all M.A.C.S violations.
Yep.
Is 7, Actually, Sergeant says it's 8. Schlage is 7. Weiser 5. Westlock is 6. Yale is 5.
And if you're looking for this information, that also should be in your lab pin kit. The lab guys have done this long enough. They know all the information to put in there. There's the specs on every single pin, every single size, the thousandths, the increments that it changes by. All of that information is in the lid of that pin kit. So this is exactly why it's super important. If you're a professional locksmith, or you're going to be a professional locksmith, or even if you're an institutional locksmith, if you're going to do master keying, you probably better have an 03 pin kit. That's the Mac Daddy. If you're trying to work in 05, you're going to be able to do some things, but I wouldn't limit what systems we would be able to work with based off of the pin kit. It's only, it's not that much price difference between the 03 and the 5. So you might as well go get the 03 pin kit, and then you can do your full array, and it's got all of those different manufacturers, all of that technical data built right into the box, and it's always right there in front of your face. If that gets worn out, or you have an old pin kit, or somehow that's destroyed, you can also go to the manufacturer. You can do a quick Google search of, or you can even chat GPT probably, what is the manufacturer specifications for a Russwin Corbin, whatever keyway, or keyway, or whatever that you have. Okay, you can put that in there, and I bet it'll give you all that information. So you have to understand how the system works and what the rules are. The math provided by the manufacturer are the rules that you have to play the game of master keying by. They set the rules, you apply the rules, and that's what allows us to do the master key system the way that we're doing it. Okay, leave that up there for just one more second, and then we'll jump to the next page. So go ahead and explain what we got going on here.
All right, using parity and progression, write out a one-page master key system. Wayne, I apologize. I believe this is the wrong slide presentation, but we can go ahead and get it to work. Your master key bitting is, so you put that at the top, 436752, and your progression is A, B, C, D, E, F.
Okay.
So when you go ahead and you fill that all out, the question is, how did you do the first page of the master key system? It will take you some time to figure this out. And then, did you find any M.A.C.S violations? If so, how many? This is for a Schlage system.
Right. So we'll give people just a little bit of time. Obviously, we can't wait too long. But if you're watching this on demand, you can continue to work your progressions as we go throughout the program. If you're watching it on demand or later, or the recording, then just hit the pause button, and you can go ahead and write that progression out as you see it on based on the rules that we've given so far. Okay. So I just wanted to get some real close-up pictures so that people can really understand what a M.A.C.S violation is. And this is a perfect example of that right here. So this would be a number 9 cut right next to a number 1 cut. Okay. And then this would be a number 9 cut. This is a 1 cut. And then this is an 8 cut right next to it. These are M.A.C.S violations. And you can see the visual as to why it's a violation. Now here, this is technically not a violation because we have a 7 and we have a 1 on the tip, on the very tip of the key. You've got the 7 cut, and then you've got the 1 cut next to it. You can see how there's a flat spot for that pin to rest. So the tip of the pin, the key pin, or the bottom pin, has a flat portion on the key to rest and to function. Now, obviously, when we jump over to the next deep cut, that is an 8 cut, and you can see how that's a violation, and it creates a little mountain peak. And when you have a mountain peak with no flat spot, you're going to have tip on tip. You're going to have the tip of that bottom key on the tip of the key. And as you put that key in and out of the lock, obviously you're going to get wear on both the key pin and the brass key. over time, that's only going to dramatically wear that down, and it's going to make it so that that doesn't work. It probably wouldn't even work right off the bat. And then again, as we move back towards the bow, you can see that we've got a number 9 cut. That is the deepest cut in the system, and a number 1 cut. You can see how that number 9 cut, the V portion of it, cuts right into that 1 cut. So there's not a nice flat resting spot like the other picture. This is what it should look like. This is a key cut with no M.A.C.S violations. You can see each pin and each tip of each pin is resting nicely on that nice flat portion on the bottom of the cut, giving it a full range of motion. And any of those tips that you see, that is not where the key pin is going to rest. That is just the angle cut between the 2 flat spots. So that can wear over time. This key can be used hundreds of times, thousands of times, and it will wear some of those little peaks out, but that's not where the pin sits. So it's not going to change the bitting. It's not going to wear that point out to the point where the key pin does not rest on the actual position that it's supposed to be resting on. So it's just a real good visual aid to understand and see what M.A.C.S violations look like. And then we also have a video here to show what that looks like as well. And then there's a picture of that key. M.A.C.S violations, maximum adjacent cut is what that stands for, M.A.C.S.
Okay, so now let's explore what happens with M.A.C.S violations here. So we're going to get a blank, and I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then we'll pin it up, and then I will show you based off of this key that is currently cut to 191817, and we can see what that looks like and how it affects the maximum adjacent cut to that next cut. You can see that there's just a little tippy top right there for that pin to ride on, which is going to cause a major problem and major flaws in our master key system, which is not going to be real happy about that. So if we violate the M.A.C.S, if we violate the M.A.C.S, and let's say we do a 1. So we've got a 1. Okay. A 9. A 1. And an 8. And a 1. And a 7. Okay. So now this is pinned to this key code right here. Okay, 191817. Now, if there was no such thing as M.A.C.S, this would be matched perfectly and it would be even. See that this one here is lower, okay, and it's lower. And that is just barely riding on a teeny tiny little tip right there. So any fluctuation, any wear of the key, as soon as this key gets any wear whatsoever, it is going to start to not function. And then you can see how the 9 cut took out half of that 1 cut. That's what a 1 cut should look like, not that. Okay, so when we look at it that way, you can tell that it's not going to take a whole lot for that to not start working. Okay, so that is why we do not violate M.A.C.S, maximum adjacent cut.
Okay, so you can get real close and personal there and see that the tip on tip is not going to work out real well. That's not going to be a sustainable system. You might be able to get it working once or twice while you're pinning that system up, but as soon as that key is put into circulation, you're immediately going to start having some pretty significant issues. And then if you tried to copy that key on anything, good luck with that.
Amen. It's not going to work at all.
Nope, it's not going to work at all. Yeah, the second you try and copy that on a duplicator, it's going to eat out the next cut right next to it, and you're going to be having a very, very miserable day. So explain to us what's going on this page here, Jerry.
Here is the M.A.C.S violation. There are 19 M.A.C.S violations, Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
You can see a 0 and a 9, like you had a 1 and a 9, I believe.
Yep.
But a 0 and a 9 obviously is not going to work.
Nope.
And then 6509, again, the 0 and 9 will not work in the entire column. The second column, all of that is just M.A.C.S violations. So basically, if you have 64 minus 19, you have 35 operating changes you could use on this one page.
Yep. And it starts to get close, but we're still within that 7 here when we jump over. If you're looking at the first column, 6, 5, 8, 9, 4, 7, and then we're looking at this highlighted column, 6, 5, 0, 9, 4, 7. Obviously, the 0 and the 9 is the M.A.C.S violation there. And then as soon as we jump over to the next column through the progression, we've got 6, 5, 2, 9, 7. Now, that is right at the M.A.C.S, but it's not violating it because we're not past 7. So if we were to take that, chop that down one more time, a 2 and a 9 can be right next to each other, but a 1 and a 9 or a 0 and a 9 cannot. And hopefully that was a good visual representation where you can see that if you do that, that pin's going to just be sitting on a half shelf cut or even just a peak. And as soon as that key is put into circulation, or as soon as you start trying to duplicate that key, that you're going to have some pretty significant and major problems with your master key system, and things are going to be going, all heck's going to break loose, basically.
Yes.
So then you would just continue that through your system. I feel it's very important, again, you have to write out one system. Yes, there are software programs that'll design all this and do it all for you, but your very first one, if you are learning or you have never written a master key system out, take the time. You're here today. Take the time after this video, take the download, find a download, use the one that we sent out, or just do a quick Google search and you'll be able to find one very, very easily that's free. Download it, print it out, write it out, and use handwriting and really write everything out. I can't tell you how much that's going to do for breaking, really cementing that mathematical formula into your head, and then it'll just come naturally. And I don't even really need to think about it after a while. You just know in your head what it is, and writing out little systems like this is going to be very easy. And you're also going to have a better understanding when you're taking over other master key systems. That's one thing that you're going to find when you understand how a master key system is supposed to look and how it's supposed to be, and then you go take over somebody else's system because they either couldn't service that client, or something happened to that locksmith, or something has happened and you need to go in there and you need to take over another system. You're going to understand the math. When you understand the math behind it, you'll be able to decode that whole system, and you'll be able to break that master key system down, and you'll be able to regenerate it and understand what's happening there, even if they didn't hand that master key system over. And there's a lot of locksmiths that keep that. They hold it hostage, right? And that's a big discrepancy in the industry. Some people feel that if the customer bought it, that you should give that customer their master key system or give them the option to buy it, and they should have that on file. Some people feel that that's how they hold on to that customer, and that's how they keep them as a client and customer, is by keeping and retaining that information. I'm not here to tell you which way is the right way to do it. I can tell you what I do. I do give my customer the master key system, and I want them to have it because I want them to want to come back to me. I don't want a customer who feels obligated to come back to me because they have to, because nobody else can manage their system. I want clients who choose to come back to me. And if I'm not servicing them properly, then they have the ability to go somewhere else. On that same note, if we have a master key system that's more than 10 change keys, I charge a minimum $500 master key design fee. And then that then buys it so that they can then have it. And then I'll ask them, do you want me to keep this master key system on file? Do you want me to keep records of this? Or do you want to maintain the records of it? And at that point, it's up to them. Then if they want us to maintain it, then we can put it into one of our cloud programs. We can put it into one of the systems that we have, and then we can maintain it through the phone, through a cloud-based program, or they can maintain it through their paper system if that's what they want to do. But those are just a lot of different things to think about. You're keeping, quite literally, the master keys to their facility. You hold all of the security. You also hold the liability for that as well. So if you have a master key system written down on a piece of paper or on a book, and that book gets stolen, or somebody gets into your email, wherever you store it, then you could be facing some liability issues, because if somebody knows how to decode that system, they can do that. And then basically they can cut a master key and they can go anywhere they want. Whereas if the customer has their own information and it's their responsibility to keep it, and we just access it to maintain the system, then that liability is now on them. If they don't keep it, hey, I got to redesign this system. We got to start over from scratch. But now you have the mathematical ability to do so. Technology is nice, but if you can't handwrite a master key system out based on basic math principles, you are not ready to be doing master keying yet. You have to be able to write that system out. You have to be able to write out a basic master key system before you should be implementing or selling that as a tool or a skill, in my personal opinion. Use those tools to help aid you and help make your job go smoother and faster, and use the technology to enhance your skills. But there might be a day where the power's out, the internet's down, your phone doesn't work, something happens where you don't have access to your master key system, or you don't have access to something that can do it for you. You're going to have to go back to pen and paper, and you're going to have to understand how these master key systems work and the math behind them. You have anything to add to that?
No, just that you don't want to keep your clients, quote unquote, hostage.
Yeah.
Someone wants to. I had to go ahead and give one away, one master key system away. The customer bought it, said, "You maintain it." I said, "Okay," and they said, "We're not happy with your service." I said, "Fine." I said, "Have a locksmith call me, and I'll go ahead and transfer it over." The locksmith called me, and I transferred it over. No hard feelings. That's the way business works.
Yep. And that's an ethical decision as well. I mean, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I know me personally, like I said, I don't want to hold my customer hostage. Why would I want to work for somebody who doesn't want me working for them, and there's going to be a hostile environment? You're going to be arguing over every bill, every penny, every dollar. You're going to be arguing over everything. I would much rather let that customer go, let somebody else service them who they think is going to get a better service from. And I can tell you that I can count on both hands the amount of times I've let a master key system go. They had somebody else service it and wrecked it, and then they ended up bringing me back to come get it back on the system and get it back under control, because the other person did not treat that system the way that it needed to be treated, and they didn't follow the progression as it needed to be followed, and they just kind of went in there and did whatever they wanted to do, and they didn't follow the system. So you can get that system back, but it's just a matter of what you want to do between you and the customer. Okay, so we'll put this back up here for just a minute. If you want to take pictures, go ahead and do so. And then you just keep working the math. Okay, take your max violations out. None of those are going to work. And then just keep recording all of your different change keys. Okay, so now we go into how to pin up a cylinder in a system. In order to properly pin up a cylinder in the master key system, you need to do the following. We need to write down the highest key in the master key system, which is the master key, and then we write down the lowest, which is the change key that is going to be used. We'll use the following information. I'll let you go ahead and take over, Jerry.
Master key will be 725413, and the biddings that are highlighted, we want to go ahead and figure this out. We're going to do the first one, I believe, on the next slide. Well, where we go ahead, change number 1, the master key bidding. Excuse me. The master key bidding array is 725413. I can read. The number 1 change bidding array is 147231. Which is the smaller between a 7 and a 1? 1. Which is the smaller between a 2 and a 4? A 2. Which is the smallest number between the 5 and the 7? The 5 is a smaller number. Which is the smaller number between the 4 and the 2? The 2 is the smaller number. Which is the smallest number between the 1 and the 3? Everyone's saying 1. And again, which is the smallest number between a 3 and a 1? 1.
Okay. We want to go to the next slide.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So we now go ahead and figure out the differences between the following bidding array. Again, master key 725413 and the change key 147231. The difference between the 7 and a 1 is a 6. The difference between a 2 and a 4 is a 2. Difference between a 5 and a 7 is a 2. Difference between a 4 and a 2, again 2. And the difference between a 1 and a 3 is 2. And the difference between a 3 and a 1 is a 2. Notice how everything is even. There for your parity.
Yep. And this is the one that we keyed up at the beginning. This is the exact bidding that we keyed up in that first key. So you can see what it looks like when we keyed it up. You can see what the pins look like. You can see what the keys look like. And then you can see what it looks like on the math here, right? You just run through the keys. You run through that bidding and you write the smallest number down first. And that is your bottom pin. Okay. Right. If we put a number 7 in there, our number 1 is not going to have a shear line. Okay.
Correct.
So it's just the smallest number down on the bottom and then the top pin up on the top. I usually write them the other way, but you understand what's going on this slide here. And then you just do the math for the rest of the yellow highlighted changes on the flowing worksheet. Okay, so you can do that through here. You want to explain a little bit more about what would be in these yellow boxes?
Basically, the yellow boxes are highlights that you would probably go ahead and select for a change on a master key system. I normally like to highlight them. That way I can see, okay, fine, like in the number 2, which is in the 4th column, 343231. So I would take that and I would subtract that from the, I'd put the master pin of 725413 on the top. I put the bottom pin number 4 of the change number 4 of 343231 and do the math that way. Everything will go ahead and work out. This is basically a test for the students to go ahead and figure out to see if they can figure out there is a M.A.C.S violation in here. I will tell you that right up front. But there are 4 changes and everything should have the correct bottom pins and master pins. We want to go ahead and understand that this is not page 1 of 64. This is page 52 of a 64-page workbook. That's from what you can see right here. It says right there, 52 of 64. Yep. Yeah, you can be there. There are 64 pages in this workbook.
Right. So this is designed to get you to catching those M.A.C.S violations. Again, anything that's going to be a difference of 7 or more. So if it's a difference of 8 or 9, that is going to be a M.A.C.S violation, and you want to stay away from those. Okay. So anytime you see those two numbers that are too close together, that's going to be a good indication of where those M.A.C.S violations are.
So here are your answers. Bottom pin for number 2 is 321211, and your master pins are 464222. Number 3 was a M.A.C.S violation. Number 4, bottom pins 323211, and your master pins are 42222. Again, parity. Master pins 2, 4, 6, and 8. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Eliminates ghost keys, eliminates errors.
Why don't you define ghost key? Why don't you define that?
Ghost key, Wayne, is where you go ahead and someone gets a key. If you didn't use parity, you could go ahead and if you had a lock key to 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going to use quick set 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and your neighbor's key is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and yours is. I got to write this down. I'm sorry.
Got to go old school on it.
Oh man, I tell you, the brain isn't working right, Wayne.
That's all right. So basically, it's a key that wasn't designed to work with the system that works with the system.
That works with the system. That's basically a ghost key.
Yeah, it wasn't planned, and when it's not planned and it's not engineered into the system, it shouldn't work.
Correct.
And mathematically, that is possible if you don't follow the parity that we have set up here and the rules of the math. Okay. So if you take one key from your bag and each key is numbered to the cut on the following master key chart, all keys have been cut and tested in a cylinder, so I know that they all work. And that's something that we do too, is I test everything out. I will actually cut those keys and test them. I test them before we put them on the door. And, you know, we can kind of go into some different ways to get bigger jobs done. But that's, as we kind of wrap things up here, I'll usually have somebody bringing me cylinders, or if we're replacing cylinders and putting a restricted keyway on, labeling. I cannot stress how important labeling is. Labeling on the cylinders, I usually grab a Sharpie or an awl and scratch into the cylinder which one it is and tie that to that master key system. So you've got all those biddings put in there. Now you need to write in next to it what door on the door schedule that's going to go to. It would be really nice. The best way to do this, the best way to plan this, is to have the plans for the building, have the door schedule all laid out right in front of you, have those doors all marked. You can digitally mark them on digital plans, or you can get the ones that are printed out, but that gets a little expensive. But then you can actually line up the whole schedule. We just did this with the police department, okay? And this really comes into effect because the evidence room is so secure, right? The evidence room can't even be on the master key system. It has to be on its own individual key, and only the chief can have that particular key. All right. So this is where, that's a great example as to where all of this teaching, all this education that we've been teaching you today really comes into play. Because if we have multiple keys and non-authorized keys that work on that evidence room, it could compromise it to the point it could change people's lives, because that evidence may no longer be eligible to be used in a case, right? Or it might change whether somebody gets prosecuted or whether they get off. And imagine if you're the locksmith and you screwed up and evidence gets thrown out in a very high prolific case because of your error, and somebody walks away from something horrible, or they get convicted of something that they didn't do simply because that master key wasn't done correctly. Those are the dire consequences that people don't really think about. So number one, what we did to address that is my lead technician, Josh, sell them on a high security keyway. If key control is actually a thing, which an evidence room should be, then
Amen.
we already need to be on high security. So we already put them on Primus. Okay. And the nice part about Primus is we can use all of the systems that we've been doing, the Schlage system, which is what we've been using all day today. That already applies into the Primus system. The Primus system just has an additional sidebar with side milling on the sides. Because again, restricted keyway just means that you can't get the key blank. Okay, there's different levels. There's common keyway, Schlage, quickset, that's common keyway. Restricted keyway, something restricted, RXO, MX, alpha, there's a bunch of restricted keyways that you just can't get the blanks, but they still operate on one shear line, one single pin stack and one single shear line. High security goes one step above that. My personal definition is drill resistance. So it needs to have the anti-drill pin, so you can't just drill it. There's tons of YouTube videos on drilling locks, and it has to have multiple shear lines. So you have a pin stack shear line, and then you have a sidebar shear line as well. And that's really going to protect you from keys, non-authorized keys working in the system. If you have the correct math done the correct way and the correct progression on a high security keyway with that additional security feature and that additional shear line, very little to no chance of unauthorized keys operating that cylinder. And that's what you want to have. Okay. So that's something to think about as you're selling this system. Now, is every situation going to be that high security and that high level and have that high consequences? No, a strip mall is not going to have that. Apartment complex is not going to have that. But you need to apply the correct keyway and the correct hardware to the correct application and the correct system. And obviously, a police department or a government facility or a school, any of those things where we have a very high volume of keys and locks and change keys and a very high expectation of security for those, you should be using some kind of restricted or high security system. And this master keying, all these rules apply to all of those different systems. Do you have anything to add to that, Jerry?
Just that you make sure you watch your M.A.C.S, make sure you use the correct M.A.C.S for the system you're using, the manufacturer you're using, I should say. Just want to go ahead and have everything working properly and to be careful.
Yep. So here's page 20 of 64. Okay, so you're going to be able to go through here and continue to do that math. Again, if you're watching, you can pause and you can rewatch this recording later, and you can pause it as long as you need to, or you can take a picture, and we'll go to the next slide here in just a minute. I'll leave it up for just another minute here. And then I think we've got a video of some other bad habits that can be manifested while we're doing master keying as well that we want to avoid. So I'm going to go ahead and change. And now we're going to talk about why we need to have 30 thousandths or more between our cuts. So when we say the even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, you see that everything's 2, 4, 6, 8. Why is that? Because a number 2 master pin is 30 thousandths, and that is the minimum you should be putting in there. Anything that's requiring anything less, like a 15 thousandths, not a good idea. Okay. You might be able to get it to work one time or a couple times. And here's where this is really going to come into play. When you go to somebody's house or their business and they say, I want this key and this key to work, and they give you 2 random house keys. Okay. You can make a lot of those key systems work, but what's going to happen inevitably is you're going to get one where you have a 6 on one and a 7 on another, right? You're going to have in those same, let's say the first cut, one's a 6 and one's a 7, and it's going to call for a 15 thousandths or a number 1 variance between the two, 15 thousandths on Schlage. Do not set that up. Tell the customer no. You can tell the customer no. I've done it quite a few times. And if they don't like it, then they can use somebody else. I am not going to do it. I am not going to put my company and my reputation on the line and do something that I know for a fact is going to lead to a failure down the road, especially if it's residential. We know how sloppy the new cylinders are. Like the new cylinders from the stuff that comes from the hardware store, it's not even brass anymore. It's like pot material, pot aluminum material, like Zymac material. Okay, it's not even brass anymore. And if you look, they're poured, they're not machined anymore. Okay, so that means that there is a much larger tolerance and a much larger gap between the cylinder and between the housing. And this video is going to show you why that's important and why we shouldn't be using those 15 thousandths master keys or master pins.
Okay, another master keying error that people tend to do would be only making one cut differences. Okay, so only 15 thousandths. Okay, that is not going to work very well, because if we only have one cut difference, so that other key is cut 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and this one is cut, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this one is set up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I can show you exactly what it looks like when a 15 thousandths pin is being used. Okay, I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So you can see we've got all 15 thousandths in there, and we'll go ahead and plug it in and put it in here. Okay, so now we've got all those number ones tied up in there, right? 15 thousandths or less. But the problem is, let's pull that out, and then let's put our 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in. Now you can see sometimes they stay and sometimes they don't. So technically, based off of this key, those should have stayed up in there. So this is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, all of those master pins should have stayed in there, but because they're too thin, they are causing a problem. The other thing that can happen is those master pins, let's see if I can get it to do it with this cutaway or not. Those master pins can also get caught in between here, in between the cylinder and the Bible. They can get, or in between the cylinder and the plug. Okay, they'll slip, especially after use and after wear. This is a pretty tight cylinder, so it's going to be a little rough to do that, but you can already see that it's not following the master key cuts that it's supposed to be following. That should have been left up in there. So that alone is a violation, because that would mean that an unauthorized key would be allowed to work in that situation. Okay, an unauthorized key would be allowed to work, and you would allow more keys to work because you put that number 1 in there. This is a recipe for disaster. And the next thing that'll happen is, as this cylinder wears and as these edges wear, this master pin will eventually get to the point where it slips and it binds in between the cylinder. It'll wear so thin that it'll actually bind in between the two. Like, see how I'm trying to push that over there? It's kind of doing it right now. Okay, and that will cause a major problem with the lock as well, because then you'll have a pin, you'll have a master pin floating in between here, and it'll become very difficult to operate and very difficult to turn. So let me put our one that this should take all of the master pins in there, and it does. But where it becomes a problem is when we're one cut off. If we're one cut off, it's leaving some and it's trapping some. And then again, those master pins will eventually wear so thin, the edges will get worn on them, and they'll get trapped in between the cylinder and the housing, and that will just cause a major problem with your master key system. Another major problem with master keying, a definite no-no. No 15 thousandths or less. It has to be 30 thousandths or more. 2 cuts, okay? 2 cuts, 30 thousandths or more, and then you won't run into that problem.
All right. I thought I had one more video on there, and maybe I didn't add it to there. But you also, when you see that progressive cut of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what'll happen is over time, those little peaks will wear. And then what'll happen is you insert the key and you rotate it over, and the key pins trap the key on that little triangle point in between the cuts. And that's why the key doesn't come out. But what happens on that progressive, when you go down like that, eventually those wear out, and then the key will be able to be removed while the cylinder is in the rotated position. It would look like the lock is picked. So if the keyway is direct straight up and down at 12 o'clock and that's locked, what would happen is you could rotate the key and then you can remove the key, and it's going to be in that picked position. Anybody with a key blank or a screwdriver that identifies that will be able to come by and open that lock at any point in time, and you would never know it. So again, another security flaw. And people will do that because, hey, that's a really easy thing to remember, right? I'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that'll be my master key. And then, everything goes down from there because they want to be able to load up the whole chamber and then use the master or the change key as a key to put the cylinder back into the plug, because they want to have that extra confidence of having that key in there to see everything. That's not a good idea. That's not a good plan. That's going to be a violation of security specifically for those reasons. It's only going to be a matter of time before that key can pull right out in the unlocked position, leaving your client vulnerable. Okay. So it's responsible master keying with professional integrity. That's what we want to teach. And that's why I wanted to focus on all the improper ways and the problems that can happen throughout this process as well. So we do thank you for joining today. That is going to be the end of that particular portion. If you are looking for a system, because I'm sure that the next thing people are going to be asking and saying, if you do have questions, go ahead and put them over there in the chat section right now. But we'll draw up one other page here, because I'm sure people are asking, where can I get software to do the math for me? Because everybody likes an easy button, right? Everybody likes a nice easy button. I like an easy button too. And Jerry has actually come up with an easy button for us. And that is through the Master Key Manager. Okay, this is going to be a cloud-based master keying software. You can get this from your app store for both Apple and Android. Is that correct, Jerry?
Well, sir, you have to go ahead and just on any page on my website, which is www.masterkeymanager.com, there is a link, and everything is, everything right there. Launch the web app. Everything is web-based. There is no app store involved. This will go ahead and you can load it on your computer. You can load it on your iPhone. You can load it on your Android device, laptops, anything that has a web-based browser on it can accept this. I made a mistake by just going to Android, and not everybody has an Android phone. So that's why we went ahead and we moved this now to the web, and everything is on anything that has a web-based browser, you can go ahead and get to it. Here are, you just clicked on the, what I like to call the features, and it tells you everything. Currently, there are 67 features out there. Cloud-based works on anything. Anything highlighted in blue, we'll go ahead and a video is linked to it. It tells you how to create a master key system. I mean, there are so many things on here, I lose track. In fact, I've gone ahead now, and even thanks to Josh, you're the gentleman that works with you, Wayne. Mm-hmm. He has gone ahead and given me a couple things. You've given me a couple ideas, and I went ahead and I built a back end now where I can go ahead and put these on without hurting anything that's currently on the platform. If by chance someone says, oh, wait a second, I don't have it to work XYZ system or manufacturer. Well, let me know. We can go ahead and get it to work. I'm also in the process of getting an advisory committee. Anybody that wants to be on an advisory committee for a master key system, master key development, please feel free to let me know.
Yeah.
It's
So what this does too is it allows you to deconstruct other master key systems. If you can take
absolutely
a cylinder apart and you can get or you have access to a couple keys, if you have access to a master key and a couple change keys, you can actually import that into this program and it will decode everything for you. And it will do that for any keyway, and it will even do it for A2 interchangeable core pinning too, correct?
I can do it for A2, I can do it for Corbin Rissman and for Sergeant. If you don't have the control key, we can go ahead and we can determine your control key. If you need to create a system, as long as you understand the rotation or progression of the cylinder, and everything is now on the system, it'll go ahead and it'll create a system. There's one system out there, I don't want to mention names or anything, but their progression is backwards from A, B, C, D, E. It's E, D, E. What's backwards from A, B, C, D, E?
EDCA, EDCDA.
Right. And thanks, Wayne. I mean, but it can. My program, Master Key Manager, can go ahead, and when you go ahead and put together a system, a legacy system, that would be, you can figure out, okay, well, the progression looks like it's EDCBA, and it'll go ahead and put it together for you.
Yeah. So we can play one of the videos here as to how that system works. Because once again, I know people, if you're just learning, this can be a lot of information. And as important as it is to write things down on paper, that is very time consuming. It's very important, and I consider mandatory when you're learning how to do a master key system. But as you start to work with this, and as you start to get more clients who have master key systems, or you take over more systems, it's going to be very important that you work efficiently, because we're all doing this for profit as a business, right? We're all running a business here. I'm not designing master key systems and rekeying buildings because I have nothing better to do with my time. I'm doing it to put money in my bank account. And to do that, we have to do it quickly and efficiently. And that's exactly what this system is going to allow you to do. So this little video will explain a little bit about that.
In this walkthrough, we'll take a look at how Master Key Manager handles the creation of master key systems. Whether you're building a brand new system or bringing an existing legacy system into the platform, the workflow is designed to be straightforward and familiar. Let's start with how new and legacy systems are supported. From the key system screen, you can start building a new master key system at any time. Selecting Create New System begins the process of defining a brand new system from the ground up. This option is used when you're designing a system that hasn't existed before and want full control over how it's structured from the start. Once you begin a new system, you'll enter the core details that define how that system is built. This includes selecting the lock manufacturer, system type, and keying parameters. Each supported manufacturer follows its own maximum adjacent cut specifications, commonly referred to as M.A.C.S, and those rules are automatically applied as the system is created. Before the system is finalized, Master Key Manager presents a full system review. This allows you to verify all entered information and confirm the system is built as intended. At this stage, the system evaluates all generated change keys, clearly identifying which keys are valid and which are invalid based on the manufacturer's M.A.C.S requirements. After confirming your system, Master Key Manager generates the full range of possible change keys, organized and presented by page. In this example, the system produces 64 pages of potential change keys based on the master key bidding. Each change is evaluated against the manufacturer's max requirements, with invalid combinations clearly identified and excluded from use. Each change key is clearly marked with a color-coded status, so you can instantly see how that key is being used. Available keys are ready to be assigned to a door. In-use keys are currently active within the system. Used keys have been retired and cannot be reused. Blind codes are automatically generated and managed by the system, and once used, they are never reused. Keys shown as invalid violate the manufacturer's max requirements and are automatically excluded to prevent errors. Master Key Manager fully supports legacy master key systems created before the platform was introduced. Existing systems can be brought in without changing their original structure or design. Legacy systems are clearly identified and visually distinguished, making it easy to separate older systems from newly created ones, while keeping everything organized in one place. When working with a legacy system, only keys that are currently in use need to be entered. For each active change key, the system records the existing bidding, the associated blind code, the door location, and the number of keys that were originally cut. Additional notes can also be added, providing important context or history for that key within the system. Once systems are created or brought into Master Key Manager, they're all accessible from a single location. From here, you can review system details, assign change keys to doors, and manage both new and legacy systems in one organized view. The search function makes it easy to quickly locate any system, ensuring everything you've created or imported is always easy to find and manage.
Isn't it time that you brought your master key systems into the digital age? With Master Key Manager, you will now carry all your master key systems with you. Sign up to Master Key Manager by pointing your browser to app.masterkeymanager.com and start your 14-day free trial today.
Okay, so those are just some tools that you can use, whatever system you're using. If you're already using something, that's great. Continue to use it. Two other things that I just thought about that I actually learned back in the old school days of writing everything down or doing like Excel spreadsheets is if you're designing a quick set system, I was always told that you should put a number 7 cut in your master key because that's not going to be a factory cut. There's not a quick set factory cut out there with a 7 cut that I'm aware of. So you automatically start reducing the chances of random house keys working when you include that 7 cut in your quick set keyway system. That also goes for Schlage, only in a 0 cut. Any lock you're going to pull off of the hardware store shelf, I've yet to see a 0 cut on any of those factory cut keys. So your master key system, if I get to design it, I will put a 0 in that master key to help prevent that if it's a 5-pin system or even if it's a 6-pin system. That 0 cut is going to eliminate any random house keys from working with the master key bidding. Now, that's not saying that they can't work. It's just saying that you're eliminating a large percent of them working as the master key. Okay.
Especially with a 5-pin system.
Yep, especially with a 5-pin system for sure, because then you're on 5 pins. You have one less chamber to the 7th power or whatever it is with the different combinations that go into that. So it reduces a lot of options, and obviously home commercial or home residential grade locks are going to be 5-pin. Commercial locks are going to be 6-pin. So having that 6-pin is really going to make things a whole lot better. If you have the opportunity or the choice, it's a good idea to make them a 6-pin system. The only time that you can't do that is if you're rekeying a bunch of storefront locks and they're all set up on Adams Wright 1-inch cylinders. Can't really use a 6-pin key because the tip's going to stick out and it's not going to be 6-pin compatible. You'd have to change out all the hardware. You'd have to change out all of the cylinders in those Adams Wright, and you'd have to go from 1 to 1.25 inches to get that 6-pin in there. So just some little things to think about that people don't, they're kind of afterthoughts, after the fact thoughts. If you want to use Jerry's system, go check it out. Master Key Manager, pull it up on the App Store, go to it on the online store, download it, check it out, check out the 14-day trial, see if you like it. And then I've also helped kind of give Jerry some ideas too. We were just talking about it the other day. Hey, if this is going to keep track of pinning schedules, why can't it keep track of total door health, right? So if you have a shop and you've got a large crew and you've got 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 trucks out on the road, wouldn't it be nice to be able to document the entire door? We service the door closer. This has an exit device. This is a rim cylinder. This has interchangeable core. The hinges were replaced on this. The door sweep, the smoke seal on fire doors, right? You could actually run a whole fire door inspection on those as well. And that's something that could be added to it. And so now we're going from just understanding that QR code, instead of just covering the master keying portion of it and keeping track of that, you can have a full audit trail of everything that's been done to that door and the health quality of that door over the years throughout its serviceability, as long as it gets maintained and updated. And you would just scan that QR code, update the information. It's going to have a time and date stamp. And then that way, if there's ever a problem, this could be a huge liability saver, right?
Yes.
Let's think about that. Let's think about that for a minute. Let's say we're working in a school, or we're working in a government facility or a college campus, and we have an incident, a fire, a mass incident, something bad, terrible happens, and there's a mass exit, right? And people need to get out, and they find one of the fire doors failed, or one of the exit paths of egress failed. Well, you would now have a way to say, because what's going to happen next, if people get injured or die, there's going to be a class action lawsuit. And I'm not an attorney and I'm not offering legal advice. I'm offering business advice. I always say CYA and cover your assets, right? If I can go back and I can scan a QR code and I can say, look, we had a technician out here on 10/28/22 and 3/28 of 24. And then we had somebody out there again in June of 2025. And this is what was done on that door, and that exit device was in full functioning capabilities at that time, then you kind of get off the hook. Or if you noted it, hey, we told them that this exit device vertical linkage was failing. We noted that on here, and they chose not to do it. Now you take that blame and that responsibility and that liability, and you put it back where it belongs, on the client who refused your suggestions. As a locksmith, I never look at just the lock. I always zoom out and expand to the entire door and the entire opening. You will make more money, you will be a better locksmith, and your customer will be more satisfied with the work that you provide if you are a one-stop total shop. Okay, that's very, very important. And if you mark on there that the door closer is leaking, right? That's a fire door inspection fail. If the smoke seal is not intact, that's a fire door inspection fail. And you, as the locksmith and the professional, are the same as a mechanic working on a vehicle. Wouldn't you like the mechanic to tell you when they're in there changing your oil that your serpentine belt is about to fly apart and you're about to be stranded on the road? Wouldn't you like the opportunity to at least know that and fix it? And a good mechanic will tell you that, and hopefully you'll get that fixed so you don't break down on the road. Same thing here.
That's what we're working on, Wayne.
Exactly. You don't want to have that happen. You don't want to have that door fail right at the critical point when it needs to work the most. And I don't care what college campus you go to. I don't care what hotel you go to. If I walk in that door and there's more than 50 doors on that property, I guarantee you I'm going to find a problem with one of them. One of them is not going to be in compliance. Right. And so this would be a way so that you can say, ding, here's the invoice. Here's the pictures on the invoice. We keep that notes on the invoice as well. And then here we've got that QR code. We could scan that. And then look, here's the full service list that's happened with the change keys on that door, that's happened with the locking system, that's happened with the rekeying on it, and the total door health all the way around. So lots of options.
Yes, and the customer can go ahead and also get the health report of the door emailed to them, because each one of these health reports will have a printout for it, and that's what I'm working on right now, Wayne, to be honest.
And I will tell people, we have the service contracts branching off back into business here, like putting money into your bank account, taking what you've learned today and turning it into money in your bank account. If you can get a couple of clients on a monthly schedule or a quarterly schedule to where you're just going out there, that's what allow you to go out there. And we did this with a hotel, and it's put over $50,000 in my bank account. Okay. Where we go out there, and this is just, they write a check every month because they have so many problems. We go out to that location and we just start fixing them. We went through and categorized every single door and documented every single door and all of the high priority issues that are on that door. And then we go there and systematically monthly, just service call and an hour labor to repair and fix those things. If you have your fire door training certificate and your fire door inspected, and you've gone through that certification, like Aloha offers that monthly on Zoom webinars, that is a license to print money because you get to go out there and tell them what's wrong. I charge them to tell them what's wrong. And then I get to go ahead and submit a repair to tell them how we're going to fix it. And then we go back and charge them again. That's 3 times. We get to go out there and say, now this door is in good health. Now this door passes what I understand to be all of the requirements with the door gap, the smoke seal, the hardware working correctly, the door closer, the proper pound pressure to open and to close, and the proper speed to close. Those are all the things you need to include in that. And now I've gotten to charge that customer 2 to 3 times along with the repairs. That's thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's done ethically and professionally because they need your expertise to tell them what's wrong. The maintenance guy doesn't know. He doesn't take these classes. He has no clue that what the gap or the reveal all the way around that door needs to be. Just because he thinks there's a little rubbing on the top of the door, and that's okay as long as it shuts and locks. I got news for you, buddy. It's not okay. You're going to fail that fire door inspection, and you can get hit with some significant fines. So what they're paying me to go look at the door, assess the health of the door, repair the health of the door, and put it back into good standing and good function, the amount that would be cost in fines for failing a fire door inspection far exceeds what I'm going to charge them to identify and repair that particular door. Worst case scenario, we do have an incident, we do have a mass incident, or we do have a fire, and people go to use that door and it either doesn't function and doesn't open and doesn't let them out, or the other portion of that is it doesn't come fully closed and latched down like it should, and it allows oxygen to get to the fire. People don't really realize this. When you're talking about a fire door, it's not to block the fire from getting from one side of the wall to the other. It's designed when they all close to cut off oxygen. That's why the gap around the door and the smoke seal is so important. That's why the minimum requirement along the bottom of the door in the weather stripping is so important. Okay. It's preventing oxygen from feeding the fire so that it starves and it dies out. Okay. That's the whole point behind it. So if you have a location and then I guarantee you after a fire or a mass incident, guess what's going to happen? The attorneys are going to start drooling, and they're going to be coming out there and they're going to be class actioning, lawsuiting anybody who's worked on that building or touched that door in the last 7 to 10 years. Everybody's getting brought in, and they're going to put you up on the stand. And if you can't say, this is where we went out there, this is what we did, this is why we did it, and this is where we recommended these fixes, and the customer chose not to do that, but we recommended it to them, all of a sudden now that liability is put back on them, and it's off of you. Every single job I do, I treat it as though I have to stand in front of the judge with somebody who has a different opinion from me, and I have to prove my case. And if you do that, that is the CYA, that is the cover your assets, and that is what is going to save you from a career or business ending lawsuit at the end of the day, in my opinion. So get a little bit off track there, but again, I just wanted to kind of expand on what Jerry's system can do and why I personally use it. I mean, I use it. I got it on my phone. My technician, Josh, uses it. We talk to Jerry. We say, hey, what else can we do? Can we do this? Can we do that? And this system, just even over the last couple of months, has really expanded from a master key system to a full door system and a building system that really can help you out. And it can help especially if you have multiple employees, because then all they got to do is scan the QR code and they can say who was there, what was done, and what else needs to be done to maintain the security and integrity of that door. Pretty cool stuff. So anything else you want to add, Jerry?
No, I'm not. Master Key Manager is not out there to. I had a gentleman text me. He tried the app, said it didn't work the way he wanted it to. He wanted it to repair something, and I said, "I'm sorry,
AI's not there yet."
I'm sorry. I don't work for that other company. I work for myself. So, if anybody has any questions or anything, have them call me or text me. Jerry at masterkeymanager.com.
There you go. Yep. You can go. There's a link from the website. If you heard about it through us and you're signing up for it, just put my name in there so that they know that you found it through us and through this program and through this free training program. I hope everybody has enjoyed this. If there's any questions, we're going to wrap up. So put them in the chat section now. If you have any questions for myself or for Jerry, hopefully we've given you a really good basic foundation. And what we want to do is we want to dig that foundation out and we want to pour a nice solid foundation, break any bad habits, show you what the bad habits are, show you why they're bad habits, and show you why they're bad habits. And so we don't implement them as you try and do it. Trust me, I know all the bad habits. I've tried them out. I've found out the hard way. Okay. I know exactly how they work because I've done them the wrong way. That's called experience.
Yes.
I've done it wrong enough times to know which way the right way to do it is. And all of the things that we mentioned today should give you an awesome foundation. We will be putting on an advanced master keying class, which will cover more complex systems, grandmasters, great grandmasters, big branch systems. And what is the specific word for that? There's a specific word for keyway master keying. I can't think of it right now, but we'll cover that too, like the different keyways with Sargent and whatnot, and where you can utilize the keyway.
Sectional?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We'll cover that in the advanced section. It'll probably be a little bit longer. I thought today was going to be a little bit longer, but I'm kind of glad that we're wrapping it up in about 2 hours here. I think that's a good chunk to get everybody started. Go out there, download those handwritten templates, print them off, send them to your multiplex systems. That's it. That's the word I was looking for. Good job, Rob. Thank you. Multiplex systems is keyway master key management. So hopefully that'll be covered. We'll cover that in the master key class for the advanced, and we'll cover all those different options, and we'll expand upon this. And then we'll go into the third option will be A2 pinning, which is its own animal, its own wildebeest. And we'll kind of tackle that. And we'll start to understand how those systems work as well, how to work the math so that it retracts the control lug for control keys, how to decode control keys. That's really going to come into play when you start engaging these larger campuses or working with national service providers who have that strung out all throughout the whole facility, big places, Home Depots, college campuses, Walmarts, giant chain stores. You're going to have to understand how those systems work. And if you have something that can help decode that system, instead of going to a location and having to drill out 15, 20, 80, 100, 200, 500 cylinders because you don't have a control key, we can simply take one apart, decode it, use existing keys, decode that system, use Jerry's program to decode it, and it's going to save you thousands and thousands of hours in drill bits drilling systems out. And it's going to look way more professional to go through and build keys to start taking systems over and removing those control cores with the control keys as it's supposed to be done, as opposed to having to drill everything out. So those are going to be significant advantages that you're going to get through those different systems. So I hope you stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed this one. Put a comment section down below. Let us know whether you liked it, whether you learned something, what you learned. Was there any bad habits that you weren't aware of that you learned through this? Put that down in the comment section, and then we will be going over more advanced systems as we progress through. Just follow me on social media. If you signed up for this class, you'll also get a email that has a link to the print-off sheets. And then the next time we do an advanced class, you'll get a notification for that as well. So you can join us again there. So awesome job. Happy to teach everybody. Happy to have fun. Really appreciate Jerry taking time out of his Saturday to be here with me. And we really appreciate
my
you.
pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Do you have anything last to say to everybody before we go?
No, if they have any questions, feel free to email me.
Yep. Email, DM, leave a comment down below. We'll check on it fairly frequently. Tag me if you see me, and get my attention, and we'll get you the answers that you need. Check your different systems out. Pick one that works for you, and pick one that fits for you and your company, and just use it and expand upon it. That's all I can really say. Okay. See you later, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.